Pull up a chair, friends. Pour yourself some tea and take your time. Today we won't talk about miracles or lucky breaks. We'll talk about the quiet things, the everyday, almost invisible stuff. People love to tell stories about how someone got lucky with their parents, or their boss, or the day they were born. I nod along, but I'm thinking about something else entirely. Show me how someone spends an ordinary day, and I'll tell you where they're headed in 10 years. It's not prophecy. Life is simply stubborn that way. It isn't built from fireworks that flare once in a while. It's shaped by a string of small, repeatable, sometimes dull actions. When I was a kid, adults used to shoo me out of the kitchen. "Go! You're in the way." I would sidle into the hallway anyway, press my shoulder to the door, and listen. One old man said, "A strong house stands not on bricks, but on mortar." I didn't get it then. Later I understood. The bricks are your talents and opportunities. The mortar is your habits. With weak mortar, even the most expensive bricks fall apart. With good mortar, even simple clay holds for ages. Let me tell you a few stories. No sermons at the first turning. You'll hear what you need on the way. I once had a neighbor at an old flea market in Brooklyn. We ran small stalls side by side. He sold gingerbread, I sold tea, and dried fruit. Every morning we met by the entrance. He started the day the same way. There'll be no foot traffic today. The weather's wrong. Yesterday was the same, and tomorrow would probably be the same. And so it went. Every day. What did I do? I asked myself, what can I do right now? I swapped the sign, moved the jars so they caught the light, tested a new blend for brewing. His tongue trained for complaints, mine trained for solutions. By evening, he had talked his day away. I had lived mine. I may sound wise now, praising focus on what's possible. Back then, I just hated coming home empty-handed with a long ballad about the weather. We don't notice how quickly our tongues learn to whine while our hands are slow to learn the work. A complaint is a hole in your pocket. No matter how many coins you drop in, they spill out on the way. Don't forbid yourself to feel. It's human to have a heavy minute. Just build a habit. As soon as everything's awful flashes in your head, ask one simple, almost childlike question. What can I do right now to be one step better? Not tomorrow, not after the holidays. Now. One call, one email, shift the desk, do 10 squats if nothing else comes to mind. Not a feat, just taking the steering wheel back into your hands. I had a friend. We'll call him Aaron. He caught a joke before it left your lips. People envied him, and he enjoyed himself too. He had talent, connections, a good family. He lacked one thing: launch. Not now, he'd say. I'll finish the website after New Year's. On Monday, when I'm back from vacation. Hear it? As soon as that elegant formula for waiting forever. Years passed. We kept meeting. He kept telling me, soon. And the more time went by, the more day after tomorrow turned into someday. I'm not laughing at him. God forbid. I just know the cost of pushing one day forward. One day becomes a habit. A habit becomes character. Character becomes destiny. How do I even start? People ask. What if you feel hollow inside, and laziness is like cold water? Here's a simple trick. I call it the 2-breath rule. Whatever you're about to do, write the first word before you finish your second breath. Put on your running shoes by the count of 2. Open the file and type its title before your shoulders slump. That's it. Ignition. Your brain doesn't need lectures. It needs a nudge. Then it will roll on its own. There's something else I see often. Quiet as rust. It starts as a speck and eats through the whole metal. Envy. How does it show up? A neighbor buys a car and something squeals inside you like a mosquito. Why not me? A colleague gets a promotion. There's that thin needle again. Do the math. You had 20 units of energy. 10 went into that sting, 5 into internal arguments, 5 into excuses. 0 left for actual improvement. 2 tailors worked in the same courtyard. People lined up for the first one. He measured with a smile, chose the lining with the customer, held the thread steady. The second watched that line and muttered. He's just lucky. He's got connections. He undercuts his prices. He never once asked himself, maybe the other guy finishes his corners cleaner? Maybe he speaks more graciously? Maybe there's a coffee pot by his door so people warm up? The first tailor had an evening ritual. He'd take a sheet of paper and write, what went well today, and why? What did he do better? What will I try tomorrow? I call this student joy. First, celebrate someone else's success, sincerely. Then cut out one or two patterns you can learn. Envy is a terrible teacher. Joy is an excellent one. Do you know who else teaches badly? The blame game. We assign a name to every pothole. Parents didn't notice. The manager didn't appreciate. The government is wrong. My spouse said something. A friend didn't back me up. The bus was late. The list can be long. Here's the hitch. While you write that list, your life sits in someone else's back pocket, and you just keep chasing. There's one trick that helps. I call it 10% of the wheel. Even when the world treats you unfairly, ask, what 10% of this situation is on me? Maybe I didn't read the contract? Maybe I agreed to a schedule I never believed in? Maybe I stayed quiet when I needed to speak up? Take back at least 10% of the wheel? Tomorrow, maybe 20. Here's a word many dislike because it's quiet and plain. Ritual. A ritual is the crutch your will leans on when it's tired. I keep a fat spiral notebook in my nightstand. My honesty notebook. Each evening I write 3 short lines. First, where I looked for a solution, not an excuse. Second, what I started without bargaining before my inner negotiator woke up. Third, what someone else's success taught me. 5 minutes. 3 sometimes. Sometimes I write a single line and feel annoyed. The day ran in circles. I still write, tomorrow, first thing, call so-and-so, and I put the notebook on my keyboard so I literally stumble into it in the morning. Not because I'm a saint, because I'm as lazy as everyone else, and I know, unless I lay down a small rail line for myself, I'll drift to later again. Don't circumstances matter? Of course they do. They're the weather. You're the ship. In bad weather, you can set a different sail, head for a cove, throw some weight overboard, or you can stand on the pier and yell at the waves. Yelling is easier. Moving is useful. Now, something people resent at first and thank me for later. Self-pity is a dangerous sweet. It tastes good and warms you for 5 minutes. In the morning, it leaves you in the same bed you'd already climbed out of. Swap self-pity for self-care. They're different meals. Pity says, lie down. It's hard. Care says, get up. It will get easier. Care is stricter, but it gives you your life back. Easy for you. You're strong, folks say. Secret? I'm not strong. I've simply spent years building an environment that's smarter than I am on my worst day. I put my phone in another room when I write. I keep running shoes by the door so I trip over them in the morning. I schedule laps with a friend on Tuesday so I'll feel awkward if I skip. That's not strength of character. That's tricking my weakness. Anyone can do it. Back to where we started. Show me your day, and I'll tell you where you're going. What does your day look like? Where does complaint start on autopilot? And how can you swap it for a question about influence? Where do you say, not now, again and again? And what action can you bite in 2 seconds before your mind delivers a lecture? Where do you watch someone else succeed and hear the mosquito? Why not me? How do you answer, good for them? What exactly did they do? What will I try tomorrow? And where do you hand your steering wheel to everybody? Your manager, your neighbor, the algorithm? How will you reclaim at least 10%? Don't promise yourself a brand new life on Monday. That's too loud. Your brain hates and sabotages such declarations. Make a quiet deal for the next 7 days. 7 is a good number. It fits in your palm. 7 days without public complaints. 7 days of the 2-breath rule for any start. 7 days of student joy. Each day find one person's win. Genuinely cheer for them. Then write one reason they succeeded and one step you'll borrow for yourself. 7 days of 10% of the wheel. In every unpleasant snag, ask, what part was within my power? Something odd happens by day 3. The world hasn't changed, but your gaze has. Where you used to launch into a monologue about not the right time, your hand reaches for a pen to write the first word. Where you used to mutter, "Well, sure, he has connections." You catch yourself thinking, "I've got a neighbor I've meant to talk to. Let me knock." Where you used to hunt for culprits, you ask, "Fine, blame can wait. What can I do for my 10% right now?" I knew a woman, 3 kids, a husband working 2 jobs, an ailing grandmother. She dreamed of finishing nursing school. "When?" I asked. "When the kids are older," she said. I gave her a notebook like mine and said, "Write 3 lines at night, and every morning, 1 step with no bargaining." A year later, I ran into her at a community clinic. She stood by the treatment room, hands steady. "When did you do all this?" I asked. "When I stopped waiting for the perfect day," she said. She didn't win the lottery or find a magic wand. She just reclaimed the wheel, 10% at a time. Friends, this isn't a fairy tale where the hero slays the dragon in 1 strike. Our dragon is yesterday's habit. You don't beat it with a sword. You beat it with a spoon. 1 spoonful of the right thing each day. Don't mock the spoon. It feeds the future. Ask yourself, right now, what 1 thing you can do before day's end, so tomorrow breathes a little easier. Call the person you've been putting off. Sketch 3 tiny steps on the task you've delayed for a month. Sit for 5 minutes and write 3 honest lines in your honesty notebook. Do 1 today, 1 tomorrow, 1 the day after. In a week, you'll look back. Everything outside looks the same, but inside, there's more light. We'll talk later about fear of change, about goals, opinions, discipline, and decisions. That's ahead. But the foundation is always the same. Stop feeding the complaint. Stop praying to later. Learn to be glad for others, and take back the wheel. That's where real adult life starts. Quiet, not fleshy. Finish your tea and skip the grand plans. Open your phone, not your feed, your notes. Write 1 action for today. Do it first, before the world rattles you. At night, ask, where was I the captain today? If there's even 1 here, the day wasn't wasted. Now I'll ask you to listen not just with your ears, but with your hands. Yes, your hands. Because you'll need to touch, rewrite, slide, and try the things I'm about to share. Yesterday we touched the bricks. Tiny habits. Today we'll get to the foundation, the part that either holds for decades or cracks with the first heavy rain. Have you noticed that the strongest feeling in hard moments isn't pain or anger? It's confusion? What do I do? Where do I go? What if I'm wrong? That what if keeps people sitting in the same chair for years. Chairs are comfortable, but they don't carry you toward your future. Take Michael. He was offered a 6-month apprenticeship with a famed restorer overseas. 1 slot. Brutal competition. Suddenly his name was on the list. I remember his eyes, joy and fear, like twins. What if I can't keep up? What about the language? What if everyone there is better? And the dance began. What if he had stayed? Years later, I saw him at his niece's wedding. He smiled, wished everyone well, and whispered, "You know, I still think about that workshop." He didn't make a big mistake. He made a big not doing. Not doing has a price. Its bill arrives late. Fear is a decent guard, but a terrible driver. Sit it on the porch, not at the wheel. How? I use an old method. Split fear into parts and give each part a short assignment. Fear of the unknown. Run small scouts. Don't move forever. Go for a week. Test the logistics. Talk to 2 people. Attend 3 sessions. Fear of loss. Limit the stake. I'll invest just as much time and money as won't endanger my family, and I'll review on Friday. Fear of judgment. Start quietly. Nobody needs to know. They'll find out when there's something to show. How do I know what's mine? People ask. Don't hunt your calling like a coin under a street lamp. Assemble it like a mosaic. A mosaic needs a frame. Here's a simple frame I carried in my wallet for years. Write 1 sentence about the year you want. Not happy and successful, that's confetti, but concrete. By year's end, I have 5 steady clients for my service. I perform twice a month. I move into a team with problems at level X. Now break the year into 90 days. What must be true in 3 months for the year to be more real? Say, 2 clients are paying. A third is close. I've got a portfolio with 5 cases and a month of bookings. Then drop to 4 weeks. Each week, 1 specific rung, and all the way down. Today, 1 action that pulls the next rung toward you. That's the difference. A dream versus a ladder. You admire a dream. You climb a ladder. I once taught a quiet guy named Isaac who wanted to leave accounting and become a data analyst. I'm 40. Too late, he said. Too late is when a doctor says so. If you're alive, it's not too late. We built his ladder. Year. Entry-level data analyst. 90 days. 2 courses finished. A portfolio of 3 problems. A mini project on real data. Week. 1 phone-free hour per day. Monday course. Tuesday project. Wednesday mentor feedback. Thursday fixes. Friday publish. Today. Install the software. Open a free class. Finish the first assignment by day's end. 8 months later, he was in a different chair. Not because the world invited him, but because the ladder did. Why don't we build ladders more often? Because we live on other people's remotes. You've heard the line, "What will people say?" People will say whatever they want. That's their job. I once lived on that channel. As a teenager, I loved singing, but an esteemed uncle said, "Singing isn't serious. Do something real." I believed him. Every time I reached for an instrument, I heard his voice in my head. An old teacher saved me with a rule I keep like warm bread. You can have only 3 judges. First, you. Values. Why do I want this? What will it add to my life and others? Second, a mentor who spots craft mistakes. That note's false. Hold your hand like this. Third, the market. It tells you honestly who needs you and for what. Everyone else's audience. Important as people, not as judges. With 3 judges, the noise fades, and you hear your own note. Sometimes it's not other people's opinions. It's the warm swamp of habit. Swamps are comfy and familiar. You know every hummock by name. The main rule is, let's just not make it worse. But swamps grow. In a year, you're up to your waist. In 2, to your chest. How to escape when strength is not at concert levels? Run 7-day experiments. Turn any huge change into a temporary test. Not, I'll quit sugar forever, but 7 days without sugar. Watch how I feel. Not, I'm resigning and going solo, but 7 evenings in a row, I'll work 1 hour on my service, and on the 8th, I'll post an offer. Not, I'm leaving social media forever, but 7 days, I'll check only twice at set times for 10 minutes. Your brain doesn't panic at experiments. It knows it gets control back in a week and lets you see results without drama. For that to work, you need 2 anchors. First, quiet morning time. No philosophy. Half an hour without your phone or talk. Open a notebook. Yes, even the honesty notebook. And ask 3 questions. What does a successful day look like? What single action moves me up the ladder? What won't I do today, no matter how I itch? Write the answers and do the action first. Small morning rituals don't turn you into a hero. They just clear freeloaders off your wheel before they climb aboard. Second, weekly course correction. Pick an evening. I like Friday before sunset, as if the world itself invites review. Reread the week and ask, where did I climb? Where did I stand at the foot of the ladder arguing about the railing? What pulled me into the swamp? What held my course? What one simple law do I add next week? Don't write a poem, 3 or 4 lines. You'll be amazed how much one honest glance backward can steer you. Let's talk about decisions. Big ones look dramatic. New job offers, a move to another city, a marriage proposal, a partnership, an investment. But most lives are piloted by small decisions repeated daily. A chef doesn't become a chef because of one perfect dish. They become a chef because they plate thousands of decent lunches without quitting. I like to keep what I call a decision diet. For 1 week, I reduce my menu of choices. I wear the same couple of outfits, prep the same basic breakfast, set the same writing hour, run the same route, and answer email only at 2 windows, say 11:30 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. The point is not monkhood. The point is to reserve decision power for real work. You don't need to win the morning with a 12-step ritual. You need to start before your mind talks you out of it. Isn't that boring? Only if you confuse novelty with meaning. Variety is cotton candy, fun and quick. Meaning is bread, it sticks. I used to chase novelty, new tools, new productivity apps, new to-do templates. The more beautifully I organized my work, the less I actually worked. A carpenter friend laughed and said, "Pick one hammer and hit the nail." I picked a plain notes app and a wall calendar. I stopped timing my genius and started timing my sessions. 40 minutes of focused work, 10-minute walk, repeat. Nothing exotic, just bricks of time laid straight. Now the uncomfortable part? Discipline. People picture a stern face and a clenched jaw. Discipline is gentler than that. It's choosing today what your future self will thank you for tomorrow. Picture 2 chairs in your living room, one labeled right now, the other labeled next week. Right now wants scrolling, sugar, and gossip. Next week wants less chaos. When I choose for next week, I'm not being hard on myself. I'm being kind to a version of me I haven't met yet. Opinions. If you try to do anything visible, you'll collect them like lint. On the internet, a stranger can fire a sentence that lives in your head rent-free for a month. Don't fight strangers. Shape the audience. Remember the rule of 3 judges: you, a craft mentor, and the market. When I draft an article, I ask Emily. She's ruthless about structure and tone. I ship it to a small newsletter list on Friday. If people reply or forward it, the market is talking. If not, the market is also talking. Everything else is weather. Don't argue with weather. Adjust your sail and ship again next Friday. Money. We tell ourselves fairy tales about money. When I make X, then I'll be generous. When I earn Y, then I'll relax. Money is a thermometer, not a savior. Use it to measure, not to worship. Don't look for life in a number. Look for life in your calendar. Show me your week. Sleep, loved ones, skill practice, focused work, care for your body, a bit of quiet, and I'll show you where your money will probably go. My grandfather kept a mason jar on the kitchen shelf labeled "Small Bravery." Every time he did one tiny thing he'd been postponing, call the county clerk's office, book a dentist appointment, repair the leaky faucet, he dropped $5 in the jar. At the end of the month, he used that money for something light: a movie with grandma, a new paperback, bakery croissants on Saturday. He wasn't buying croissants. He was rewarding momentum. You asked about institutions. Translate them. A government services portal becomes the local county clerk's website or an online service center. MFC becomes county clerk's office. A social security number lives where a SNILS used to live. The DMV is still the DMV, lines, forms, and the quiet thrill of leaving with the right sticker. The IRS is the IRS, not a monster, just a system that reads what you send. Systems are slow. Your choices can be quick. Names matter too. If your story has an Ivan or an Anna Sergeyevna, call them John and Emily or Daniel and Sarah. Not because those names are better, but because names carry neighborhoods with them. Call your city Seattle or London or Chicago or Birmingham if that's the map your reader holds in their head. Streets, diners, playgrounds, and corner stores pop into view without effort. Now your story lives next door. There's a myth that talent must be coddled. Talent needs a shop. A shop has hours, a broom, and a ledger. Keep shop hours, sweep your floor, check your ledger. When I finally treated my writing like a workbench, same time, same stool, same lamp, the muse started arriving on time too. Not every day, but often enough to build a book. What about setbacks? Americans say, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. The British might add dryly, and do keep the peel for marmalade. Either way, turn the mess into material. During one grim winter in Chicago, the heat in my apartment sputtered out. I wore 2 sweaters and a knit hat and wrote an essay titled "Drafts in a Cold Flat." It went mildly viral. Readers felt the shiver in the lines. Pain isn't mandatory for good work. Honesty is. If it's raining in your life, don't fake sunshine. Learn to write about rain. People sometimes ask for a map to purpose. Maps are fine, but they go stale. Learn a compass, a short list of values that doesn't expire. Mine are service, craft, and curiosity. When I'm lost, I ask, does this serve someone real? Does it deepen my craft? Does it make me more curious? If I get 2 yeses, I walk. If I get 0, I sit. If I get 1, I take a small scout trip. 2 hours, $30, no drama, and reassess on Friday. A compass doesn't tell you the road. It tells you the direction when roads change. Let's ground this with real numbers. Suppose you're considering a class that costs $300. Your weekly discretionary budget is $120. You could wait 3 months, or you could apply the 10% rule. Cut something small, 2 dinners out, save $60 per week, and in 5 weeks you're in. No need to brag about frugality, just steer the wheel 10 degrees and you'll land in a different port. Dates and formats? Keep it simple. If you're setting a goal for the quarter, write it like a date on your calendar. 12/31/2025. Pin it. That way your brain sees a real Friday, not a vague someday. If you're writing an address, use the local rhythm. House number, street, city, state, zip. If you're sharing a phone, format it like 212 555 077, not a chain of digits. Small cultural rhythms remove grit from the gears of attention. Back to fear. I told you to sit fear on the porch. Here's how I keep it there. I use a fear ledger. Left column, what I fear. Middle column, what I can test in 7 days. Right column, what I learned. No poetry, just a ledger. Fear, nobody will buy. Test, offer 5 spots at $49 to my mailing list by Friday 3 p.m. Learned, 3 bought, 2 asked for custom options. Fear still visits, it just stops running the house. Let's step into pop culture for a second. When you translate references, pick names that carry the right flavor for your reader. Swap a niche TV host for a late-night anchor. Replace a local streaming act with a charting artist. Quote a line people already hum in the shower. Not because global is better. Because a good reference is a bridge. The reader crosses it in 2 strides instead of reading a footnote. If you need a hero for quiet persistence, bring up a tennis player who survived 5 set battles or a musician who spent 10 years in clubs before 1 album charted. The point isn't fame. The point is repetition with heart. Let me tell you about Melissa from Boston. She worked front desk at a clinic. Phones, forms, smiles. She wanted a different lane. UX research. She didn't quit in a blaze. She ran experiments. Each weekday, she spent 40 minutes on a study plan after the kids' bedtime. She found a mentor on a forum. She ran 2 mock studies with her church group, then 3 with a local library. She swapped someday for dates and what if for what can I measure by Friday. 12 months later, she had a small portfolio, a part-time contract, and then a full-time role. No miracle. Not easy, not glamorous. Brick, mortar, ladder. Community matters. We live in a culture that sells solo heroics. No hero is truly solo. Join a small peer circle. Keep it small. 4 or 5. Meet weekly for 45 minutes. Rules. Each person reports 1 win, 1 snag, 1 promise for next week. No speeches, no polished slides, no showboating. If someone misses 2 weeks without a decent reason, the circle shrinks. A good circle is an exoskeleton for soft days. When your own spine feels rubbery, borrow theirs for a bit. Health is part of the craft. No, you don't need to become a marathoner or a yogi. Just pick a minimum floor, not a maximum ceiling. 10 squats and a brisk 15-minute walk. A simple lunch that looks like a traffic light. Greens, grains, and a piece of protein. Water nearer than your phone. Sleep as if it were medicine, because it is. You're not a machine that needs oil. You're a living thing that needs cycles. Onto opinions and decisions, as promised. There's a difference between a decision you owe the world and a decision you owe yourself. You owe the world clarity. Answer people on time. Keep promises. Be explicit when you change course. You owe yourself loyalty. Don't trade a decade of your life for a stranger's applause. When in doubt, write 2 letters you will never send. 1 to the world. Here's what I will do, and by when. one to yourself. Here's why this matters to me. If those letters contradict each other, the plan will crumble. Edit until they rhyme. You'll meet the critic who says, "That's naive." Smile and keep the wheel. Naive isn't believing in effort. Naive is betting everything on a miracle. Effort is a better gambler. It plays with many small chips over many hands. When luck shows up, and it will now and then, effort is the only player still at the table to catch it. Brands and habits. Choose defaults that remove friction. If Walmart or Tesco is the store that's open and on the way, don't make grocery shopping a personality test. If you bank with Chase or Barclays, set up the automatic transfers and be done. If you need maps, open Google Maps and stop arguing about navigation. Spend your carefulness on craft, not on groceries. All right, one last story, and then homework. In London, I used to pass a tiny cobbler's shop near a tube station. The owner, Mr. Brown, kept a hand-painted sign. Shoes repaired, soles restored. A pun, of course. He opened at 8 a.m., sharp, rain or shine. He swept the same square of sidewalk every morning, whistled the same tune, and kept a candy jar by the register for kids. I once asked how he stayed cheerful. He said, "I don't try to feel cheerful. I try to behave cheerful. Feelings chase behavior." I wrote it down and taped it inside my wallet. Homework for 7 days. Yes, the number that fits in your palm. 1, 2 breath rule for any start. Before you finish your second breath, place the first brick. 2, student joy daily. Celebrate one person's win, extract one pattern, try it tomorrow. 3, 10% of the wheel. In every snag, claim your slice and act on it. 4, decision diet. Reduce small choices to save energy for work that matters. 5, Friday review by 5 p.m. 3 lines. Where you climbed, where you stalled. 1 law for next week. 6, 1 quiet hour without your phone. Even half an hour will do. Put the phone in another room. 7, 1 peer touch. Text a peer. 1 win, 1 snag, 1 promise. Keep it alive. At the end of 7 days, don't stage a parade. Just look around inside. If there's more light, keep going for another week. If not, adjust the recipe. Change the hour. Tweak the ritual. Find a different peer. Shorten the tasks. Don't call it failure, call it calibration. And when you feel that rustle of envy or the gust of self-pity or the tug of later, ask the simplest question, the one that never gets old. What can I do right now? Then do it before your second breath leaves your chest. Close the notebook, put on your shoes, dial the number, open the file, sweep your square of sidewalk. Work while the world is still busy explaining why nothing will work. In a month, you'll have a quiet stack of bricks. In a year, people will say, "You got lucky." Smile and let them. You'll know better. You got moving. Finish your tea. Tomorrow at 8 a.m., you'll be at your bench with a lamp on. That's the miracle. Not fireworks, not a lottery, not permission from the skies. The miracle is a person who keeps showing up. That person can be you. 2 breaths, 1 step, then another.